So let's just start with the experience, because I know a lot of people are really curious, like, what is it actually like? Like, what is San Pedro? So San Pedro, Huachuma is the actual indigenous term, so I'm going to call it Huachuma, is a cactus. So ayahuasca is a vine, whereas, and a combination of two, whereas Huachuma is a cactus. And it has a more, when they say grandfather energy, like it, so I was expecting it to be like super masculine, and I sat in two ceremonies, and I'll share with you what that means. But it wasn't that for me, but it was a lot more like, to me, it was like the family constellation plant. Like it really zoomed me out and allowed me to see like the relationship of my family unit. So my mom, my dad, my brother, myself, the dynamics between us, but then zoom out further into my grandparents and my grandparents' relationship with their children and my lineage and the country that my family comes from and the wars that they experienced. And it really zooms you out. So it allows you to see the patterns of things, which is essential for our healing. Like the healing journey is really the ancestral journey, because the problems that you have today, they did not start with you. They're passed down to you, 90% of them. And so without really knowing about our ancestors, we really aren't able to get to the root of a lot of these situations that we find ourselves in time and time again. So I would say if you've heard of family constellations work, it is like this plant puts you into that consciousness in the deepest way. So it's the sticky liquid. And to me, it actually tasted horrific. The ayahuasca was not so bad for me. I know a lot of people like hate the taste of ayahuasca. It really was not bad. I can't even really remember what it tasted like. I drank that full cup and I was actually totally fine. Whereas the Huachuma was like very sticky. So it was almost like there were like little like phlegmy things in it. It was like, blah. So that was actually a lot harder for me personally, though I have friends who were in the ceremonies and for them it was the opposite. So I did not know what to expect. I have seen a wide array of experiences with it, but I came humbly. I came, in reverence and of service. And it was really important for me to sit in Huachuma with a Huachumero, which is a facilitator of this, a shaman of this work, who was from the land. So he was from Peru and has been working with this plant like as his primary focus of his life for like over 10 years. And really is the plant at this point. His name is Miguel. And so I sat with him and wanted to do it in the Sacred Valley of Peru, where the Huachuma naturally grows. It's all over. So it's like having the plant where it is home. And I feel that's very important. It's not necessary, but you're just going to have a much deeper experience with the plant when you're having it in its home versus extracting it and taking it somewhere else, right? Because wherever you take plant medicines, you're also like really opening yourself up to the consciousness of that place. So when I first sat with plant medicine in LA, it was a little bit chaotic because LA's a little bit chaotic. Whereas doing it in Sacred Valley, for me, it was like super deep and potent, because there's also like, when we went out, so with San Pedro, the way that you traditionally do it is hiking. So we were every day, 12 hours, picked up at 7 a.m. and taking it on the trail and hiking. The first ceremony was up a very steep mountain. And so we did our ritual. Miguel guided us, called in the 4 directions. We really sat in reverence and intention. We each, sang a song to the medicine, or a song that we were calling in an energy. And it could be anything. It could be, a medicine song. It could be like, I love you, you love me. And so my intention for all 3 of these ceremonies was really to see anything that was holding me back from true love and really face it all. Anything that I am not seeing. I've done so much deep shadow work and really excavating into my subconscious through, many modalities and just being with myself and my own embodiment. So I was really just like curious, like, what else am I not seeing? And so I was willing to see it all. And I was not afraid of it getting dark or scary or sad or anything, and I've never been at a point in my life to really be able to like be there, of just like whatever it is, if it's going through my grandmother's child marriages, if it's going through, witnessing my ex cheating on me, whatever the thing was, I will face it. So I had no idea what to expect. And, the song that I sang was, I don't know how you do what you do. I'm so in love with you. It just keeps getting better. Amazed by Lone Star. Like, if I ever get married again, that's going to be my wedding song. And I hope to like build the confidence one day to like sing it to my future husband. So that was my song. And so we begin the hike, and it was just, for me, it just started tears. Like, so this deep, like the last of the sadness of my heartbreak that, I've done a lot of work, even forgiven him, but there was still like this layer of sadness of like, it was a very old sadness, like a generational, like feeling of like abandonment, and all the women in my family who have been abandoned by men in different ways, whether it was like a literal abandonment or emotional abandonment. And that was the first thing that really came through for me. And the ayahuasca, like I shared on that episode, it took like 2 hours for it to hit. I wasn't even sure what was happening. Then all of a sudden, I'm like singing amazing melodies, and it turned into like a hip hopper in my mind. And I'm like, whoa. And it was like a show. It was a musical. Whereas this was not that. It's much more gentle. So again, you're hiking. You could not hike with ayahuasca, at least a full dose. Whereas the full dose, you are hiking. So you're in this reality, and everything looks the same. It's a little bit more vivid. You do see a little bit more of like, if you've ever taken mushrooms before, but mushrooms are even more visual than this. This is like only really if you're looking for it. If you really look and you pay attention, you can really see the leaves breathe, and the color and things like that. But if you're looking for it, if not, you're just here in this reality. You can completely have a conversation with someone. So it's a lot more subtle than ayahuasca is. And so I'm hiking, I'm feeling this sadness, and then it shows me like my family, and it showed me how in my family, it was always like 2 against 1. So it was like my mom being like, me and your dad think this about you. But then it would also show me how sometimes it would be like me and my dad siding against my mom, or it would be me and my brother against our parents, or my mom and my brother against me or him. Or it was like always like whatever your problem was with someone, you found someone else that agreed with you, and then you like bonded over this shared annoyance together against this other person. And it showed me that, and I was just like, I do not want to take that on. Like, I don't want to recreate that at all. It's war consciousness. It's us against you. We know better. And even if it's coming from a place of love, like it was always like, we know better, like we've psychoanalyzed you, and what we've noticed about you is this. And it's like, the truth is, no one freaking knows anyone else's path. And to be like, we think that you should be doing this, note the word should, is completely negating the differences in our life paths, karmas, past lives, astrology, like all of the different factors that make all of us so unique, let alone personalities and life experiences and dharmas, and the list goes on. So it really made me aware of this war consciousness in my family, and then zoomed me out to the war that happened between Iran and Iraq. That is the reason why my family fled Iran. And, over 1 million Iranians were killed, and bombs were going off. And that's what my mom had to like literally go to school hearing, and what that does to someone's consciousness, and all of the wars that have happened, not in the Middle East, that's where my family's from, but like all around the world, war consciousness, and how this war consciousness, and I'm curious, I want you to pause where your family is from. Was there ever a war? So if your family is from anywhere in Central America, there were many civil wars there. If your family's from anywhere in Africa, many wars there. If your family's from the Middle East, ongoing wars there. If your family's even in many parts of Asia, there were wars in all of them except Thailand. So look at these wars. It might not have been your parents, it might have been your grandparents, might have been your great-grandparents. Was there a famine that happened? Was there a big natural disaster that happened? Was there a revolution that happened? Was there, you know, huge amounts of poverty, famines? So start to learn about these things in your lineage because they affect you and they're in your consciousness. And not to be like, oh, now we're screwed, but we just have to be aware of how these things show up in different ways. So if our family came from war, that war consciousness is going to be in your family and how you were raised. So we have to notice that about ourselves. If your family came from poverty, poverty consciousness is going to be in the lineage and how your family raised you. So you have to become aware of these things. If there was abuse, that consciousness is there. These are consciousnesses. So these are like thought patterns, their belief structures, and their systems. And they're passed on, but they're not you. They're not your family. So a lot of the things that we think are like your family's unique quirks are actually consciousnesses that likely were societal from there. That's why like you're like, oh my God, like all like Cambodian families do this or Guatemalan families do that. It's, well, why do they all do that? Likely there was some sort of trauma, trauma that happened that made them all become like that. So if they're all really frugal, let's ask why they became frugal. If, the men aren't involved in raising the children, let's start to ask why and start to get really curious about your lineage, because these are things that until we address, we will pass on. Even if you hate that thing about them, it's within you.